Hello dear viewers, wherever you may be around the world, it is always a pleasure when you're able to join us here on Rwanda Television for the news. My name is Serishan Hore. We will start with the headlines. Leaders from the EAC and SADC have met in Dar es Salaam to discuss the conflict in the eastern DRC. Now, on the international scene, a federal judge has blocked President Donald Trump's executive order to end birthright citizenship for children born to parents who are in the U.S. illegally or temporarily. Now to the details. Thank you again for taking the time to join us. The heads of state from the East African Community and the Southern African Development Community have met in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, for a summit addressing the crisis, that is the security crisis in the eastern DRC. At the opening of the meeting, it was emphasized that conflicting parties should embrace dialogue as part of lasting peace in the region. President Paul Kagame was among the heads of state attending this extraordinary summit focused on insecurity in the eastern DRC. Kenyan President, His Excellency William Ruto, who also chairs the East African Community, stated that the solution to the security crisis in the eastern DRC must come through negotiations between the warring parties.
The east region of DRC has been engulfed in a devastating conflict for over 2 decades now, and this tragedy has claimed thousands of lives, displaced countless civilians, inflicted unbearable suffering and loss, and set back the development momentum of one of the most promising countries in the world. The recent escalation of hostilities in Goma and the surrounding areas is a stark reminder of the increasing fragility the situation presents, and that only collective action to facilitate a negotiated solution will offer relief. Today, we join together in order to reiterate our calls to the parties to this tragic conflict to immediately cease hostilities and take positive action to allow meaningful dialogue aimed at restoration of stability. Specifically, we stand together to call on all parties to actualize the ceasefire, and specifically on the M23 to hold further advancement and the armed forces of DRC to cease all retaliatory measures. An immediate ceasefire is the only way by which we can create necessary conditions for constructive dialogue and implementation of a comprehensive peace agreement.
Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa, who leads the Southern African Development Community, SADC, highlighted that the people have high expectations from the gathering of regional leaders to find a solution to the existing problems.
To date, SADC notes and acknowledges the progress made under the Rwanda and Nairobi processes, aimed at silencing the guns, as well as facilitating dialogue among all parties to the conflict. This summit, therefore, should lead us forward towards a concrete roadmap to help resolve the ongoing crisis. As the leaders entrusted to nurture and facilitate unity, peace and development in this era, we cannot let the peoples of our regions down. Their hope is in us here. The SADC bloc remains unwavering and committed to continue playing its part.
Now, Tanzania hosted the extraordinary summit to seek a lasting solution to the security crisis in the eastern DRC. President Samia Suluhu Hassan stressed that collaboration in resolving this issue is the key to achieving peace and stability in the region.
We have witnessed the spread of violence that has caused massive harm to human life, human displacement and insecurity, which affected economic activities and disrupted cross-border trades. As regional leaders, history will judge us harshly if we remain still and watch the situation worsen day by day. And in line with the principle of African solutions for Africa's problems, our countries have a collective responsibility to ensure we urgently address the existing security challenges that have heavily impacted the well-being of innocent civilians. This joint summit meeting presents an opportunity to recommit our collective efforts in addressing the conflicts and reaffirm our sustainable peace and stability in the entire EAC and SADC regions.
Now, the President of Kenya and Chair of the EAC reaffirmed that accepting dialogue among conflicting parties is not a sign of weakness. Moving on, during the extraordinary summit on measures to restore peace in the eastern DRC, the Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi did not attend in person but followed the proceedings virtually. The President of Burundi was also absent and was represented by that country's Prime Minister. For a long time, intense fighting has persisted between the M23 rebel group, composed of Congolese fighters advocating for their rights, and the Congolese National Army, referred to as the FARDC, which is backed by foreign forces and unarmed militias, including the terrorist group that calls itself the FDLR, which consists of individuals responsible for the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi here in Rwanda. Now, staying on the summit in Dar es Salaam, Rwanda's Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation spoke to Rwanda Television on the resolutions that were reached and their intended achievements. Take a look.
You've attended the ministerial meeting that preceded the special summit. Can you tell us what our viewers can learn from both the ministerial meeting and the EAC SADC summit?
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. This summit, joint summit of the East African Community and the Southern African Development Community, SADC, is a historical summit because it's the first of its kind. And then the topic for the item, the only item, which was the situation in Eastern DRC, was timely and appropriate because of the current situation in Eastern DRC, but also because the two communities were involved at different periods in the conflict in Eastern DRC. So yesterday we had a ministerial meeting to prepare the work or the working documents or the outcome documents also for the heads of state who met today. And we met yesterday. We had a fruitful meeting. Many ministers attended the ministerial meeting, but unfortunately DRC, although they were present, but were not represented at the appropriate level because it was the ambassador of DRC to Botswana and to SADC, because SADC has its headquarters in Gaborone, in Botswana, who attended.
And in the diplomatic terms, does that send any specific message?
Of course, it sends a diplomatic message, because when the only item on the agenda of a ministerial meeting is about your country, I think you should send a minister to provide information and to debate with your colleagues to try to find a solution. But nonetheless, we had a good meeting. We had an outcome document, and today we had the summit. After many hours of deliberations, we had successful conclusion, I will say, because there are many decisions that were made that are important to find a lasting solution to the crisis in Eastern DRC.
And what are some of those decisions? Because our viewers are eager to understand and get to know those decisions and how this is going to lead us to long-lasting peace in Eastern DRC, in particular, and in the region in general.
First of all, there was a decision of cessation of hostilities and an immediate ceasefire, because it was there was a broad consensus about that. You will recall that the AFC M23 had announced a unilateral ceasefire, but for a ceasefire to hold, it is important that all parties abide by the ceasefire. So now we had a summit of heads of state that included the Democratic Republic of Congo, the president of Congo, who was online from Kinshasa, that decided that ceasefire. So it's important. That is first. Second, there was a decision to renew or to organize political talks, direct political talks between the government of Congo and different known state actors. This is, I think, how they phrased it in the decision, including the M23. Because it's important now that the M23 would be able to engage into direct talks with the government of DRC, as Rwanda has always requested. Because we have always believed that there is no military solution to this crisis, that a viable solution to find a lasting way out, or a lasting solution to this crisis, is by political means, political talks. So this is important, and we have also decided to merge the two peace processes that are current to try to find a solution to that crisis, the Rwanda process and the Nairobi process, which will now become a Nairobi/Rwanda process. And we have also decided that we will maybe find a panel of 3 heads of state who would work together in order to find a solution. So it's a new approach that would, I hope, help the parties, the warring parties in Eastern DRC, finding a lasting solution to the crisis.
Are these mechanisms, were these mechanisms present in the previous conversations or in the previous summits? Because we had the summit of the, a special summit of the EAC. I understand SADC also had a meeting. We also had the Rwanda and Nairobi peace processes. Do we have a new mechanism for enforcing the resolutions of this joint summit between EAC and SADC?
For the cessation of hostilities and ceasefire, we had mandated the Joint Chief of Staff of SADC and EAC, so the Joint Chief of Defense, to help in monitoring the implementation of the ceasefire, but also to give technical direction on other issues, humanitarian issues on the ground that were decided by heads of state. And there is also the ministerial meeting. There will be regular ministerial meetings, joint ministerial meeting, EAC, SADC. The first one will be held within 30 days to receive the report of the Joint Chief of Defense, to decide on a roadmap on those measures. There are measures that need to be implemented immediately, though others on the medium term and others on long term. So we'll have a roadmap, and also think on other issues that could be discussed to help bring lasting peace in Eastern DRC. So there's a ministerial meeting, and of course there is a summit that would be convened at least once once a year. And beyond those political and military structures, there will also be a technical and administrative secretariat to follow on a day-to-day basis on how decisions would be implemented.
So from what I understand, there are mechanisms to make sure this gets implemented. But notable to this gathering was the absence of M23 or AFC/M23. What does it tell us? Will they be enforced to implement these resolutions even though they were not present at the meeting? How does that work?
It's not the first time that heads of state of the region take decisions involving the M23. Even under the Rwanda process, we signed on 31st of July a ceasefire that entered into force on 4th of August. A ceasefire to be respected not by the signatories but by the warring parties in Eastern DRC. We believe that with the incentives now of broad political process with direct talks between the M23 and the government of DRC, and also with these merged process, Nairobi/Rwanda, I think this is enough. We believe that is enough incentive to understand that there is now a new perspective for peace, for long-term peace in Eastern DRC and the region. So let's seize this moment, this opportunity to work together to see that we can bring lasting peace in our region.
Now, still, this is the last one on the enforcement still. In the previous meetings, special meetings, some of the resolutions were not implemented by the people who attended those. Do we now have hope that all the parties are going to implement what was agreed upon?
This has always been the issue. It's not about the mechanisms only. The first thing that is needed to have peace in our region is good faith and a political will. There are so many agreements that were signed, approved by the region, including the DRC, that were not implemented. We are talking about the M23. The M23, the name of M23 is from the date of a peace agreement that was not implemented, the 23rd March 2009, the Goma agreement. And we know that the government of DRC did not respect almost all the agreement that it has committed to. But we hope now that with this large group of two communities that were involved or interested in the resolution of the crisis, that now common sense will come back, because we know that there is no military solution to this crisis. We tried a military solution in 2013 with this MONUSCO FIB, but there was no political solution that followed to address the political grievances of the community, the Congolese Tutsi, that the M23 defends. So now, it's now or never to have results on the ground.
You've already mentioned that, but I would like you to leave our viewers with a message on how hopeful or not hopeful we are with this, because we realized a military solution is not going to work. Are we hopeful that this non-military solution is going to work this time around?
Rwanda has always been hopeful, or at least trying to really understand and see that every moment, every agreement that is signed, every meeting will bring something new. Actually, His Excellency President Kagame this morning had tried to warn the meeting, the heads of state, that the summit should not be another meeting. We had had so many meetings, so it's now the time to deliver. This conflict has been going on for 30 years, more or less. After 30 years, it's a time lost for development, for cooperation, for trade, because this is a region that has many opportunities. The region, Great Lakes region of Africa. So we should reap the economic dividends of peace. But for this, we need to solve the security issues that are in our region, and to solve them, we need political will, mainly from Kinshasa. And we are here as a neighboring country, as a region, members of EAC, members of SADC, to walk around the clock and then try to find a quick resolution of this crisis.
Now to other matters. The Rwanda Energy Group has had a target to achieve 100% national access to electricity by the end of 2024 using grid and off-grid solutions. As per their recent report, over 130,000 new households were connected to the national electricity grid during the fiscal year of 2023-2024. William Evans Mutabazi has the details.
In its strategic plan of 2019 to 2024, Rwanda Energy Group articulated 10 industry and institutional focused objectives to guide its day-to-day operations so that it can achieve its overall goal of achieving fast electrification levels for industry and household usage based on a sustainable and affordable tariff. Objective 4 was electricity access, to achieve 100% national access to electricity by 2024 using grid and off-grid solutions. This was not achieved due to challenges that REG says affected its performance.
Main challenges that affected our performance were basically, much as we appreciate the progress, I think we're actually among the sectors that did well for NST1. But a number of challenges, one of them being a COVID that affected the entire world, including ourselves. There was a bit of financing challenges, wars happening here and there, because most of our materials that we use in this specific work are basically imported. But in terms of progress, we currently stand at 82%. So when we talk of 82%, we basically mean that those are households that are connected to the system and are using electricity. It's not about proximity, because there are some instances where connectivity could be having an infrastructure in an area that is ready to be used, but it's up to the people's choice to use it. But for us, we report connected households that really use our infrastructure.
In the fiscal year 2023 to 2024, REG distribution network increased with a total length of 611.9 kilometers of medium voltage lines and 2,357.7 kilometers of low voltage lines, bringing the total distribution network to 32,474.06 kilometers.
And a bigger part was grid connection. Basically, when we talk of the main grid, where some of the customers are connected to the main grid, we mean the REG-owned infrastructure, where we have transmission line and transmission lines, and then people connected on the main transmission system. And for the off-grid, there are two types. One, standalone solar home systems, where every household could choose to have a solar system that serves themselves, that serves a certain household. But also there are instances where you have a small hydro that supplies a certain community, but when the community is not entirely connected to the main grid. So they have a small system that serves that particular community, of which the same community is not connected to the main grid. And there's also some small solar systems that could serve multiple houses when they're being fed from a single system. So those are the ones that we normally call off-grid system, because they're not connected or they are not part of the bigger system.
Still in the same fiscal year, of 2023 to 2024, a total of 137,502 new households were connected to national electricity grid, increasing the cumulative total to 1,946,781 households. Additionally, 181,850 households were connected to off-grid electricity, bringing that total to 800,080 households. In total, 2,746,861 households are now connected to electricity, with street lighting coverage expanding to 2,227.62 kilometers, reaching 90.08% of the planned 2,473 kilometers. William Evans, Mutabazi, RwandaTV News.
Now, the residents of Masaka sector in Chichichiro district have requested that members of parliament advocate for solutions to the challenges they face in institutions like SACCOs. This comes as members of parliament visited community development projects in Kigali city on Saturday. Enola Gladys Benimana with more.
In Masaka sector, members of parliament visited various development activities aimed at improving the livelihoods of citizens, including VUP, serving groups, SACCO and cooperatives. Residents shared how they are improving their lives despite facing challenges they believe can be addressed. Actually, their interest rates are what cause us challenges, because they want us to pay 5%, but the VUP loans only require a 1% interest rate. So, when compared to SACCO's higher rates, it's a bit difficult for us. However, it has helped me a lot, because if I hadn't joined SACCO, I wouldn't have been able to build my house. So on my side, I have no complaints about it. Selling here in the market has not caused us any problems. It made things easier for us, and it allowed us to stop selling in the streets, which was illegal. My saving group is doing well. There is no problem with it. SACCO's benefits are significant because it allows us to save money, and they provide loans, which we share among ourselves. We can develop and pay back the money slowly through SACCO. It has helped us a lot. Honorable Uwineza Belin appreciated the performance of the SACCO in the sector, while urging residents not to regress.
icyo twashimye nuko ari umurenge SACCO wateye imbere mu buryo bw'imikorere ubona ugeze ahantu heza.
What we appreciated is how the SACCO has improved in terms of operations. You can see that it has reached a good level in helping citizens develop and escape poverty. The funds they have acquired and the loans they give to citizens have reached an impressive level, and they seem to have focused on good management. As representatives of citizens, we appreciate hearing their testimonies. We see that those who were once selling in the streets have changed their mindset and now sell in designated places, as we always encourage. They have now united, and that is where their strength comes from. Leaders of the city of Kigali showed members of parliament that services aimed at improving the welfare of citizens have been more accessible to those who need them. These representatives of citizens also suggested improvements that could help low-income citizens in Kigali better progress. Enora Gladys, RwandaTV News.
And now we take a short break, and we'll be coming back soon with the international news.
Alo, waramutse sheri wanjye.
Utekereza ko guhora wiziganya n'umushu ari byo birenze? Natwe niko tubibona. Ubona nta cyakurutira kugaragaza impano yawe. Niko bimeze.
So guys, uyu munsi tugiye kuganira ugaseke. Agaseke njye gafite byinshi. Kamari, ese wowe kakumara iki?
Manudi. Halo Manudi, niba iki uri kunkura mu kazi? Hero mabusha, byahiye kandi noneho bimeze neza cyane. Ukuntu biri no guhumura. Ako Manudi, urumva nakumva ko ibiryo bihumura koko?
Ubona nta cyakutura umwuga wawe. Erega, natwe niko tubibona dushyigikiye buri kimwe agaciro mu buzima bwawe na irekure nshya buri wese arahishiwe wikwisondeka kanda akanyenyeri 140 urwego uhitemo agaseke kawe ka packs zo guhamagara cyangwa akanyenyeri 345 urwego uhitemo bando za internet uryoherwe n'umuvuduko wa 4G.
Welcome back. A U.S. federal judge has blocked President Donald Trump's executive order to end birth citizenship for children born to parents who are in the country illegally or temporarily. President Trump's action has reignited debates over whether everyone born in the U.S. should automatically become a citizen of that country. VOA has the details.
Since returning to the White House on January 20th, Trump has signed numerous executive orders aimed at reshaping U.S. policy. Among them is an attempt to end birthright citizenship, a policy Trump has targeted since his first term in office. Birthright citizenship derives from the Latin legal principle jus soli, or right of the soil. It guarantees citizenship to nearly everyone born on U.S. soil. This right was enshrined in the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which states, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. In 1898, the court's ruling in the United States versus Wong Kim Ark affirmed this principle applies regardless of the immigration status of a child's parents. The U.S. remains one of 30 countries that offer birthright citizenship, alongside Canada, Mexico, and others in the Americas. Trump's executive order seeks to deny citizenship to children born to undocumented parents or those on temporary visas. However, legal experts argue this is unconstitutional, with U.S. District Judge John Kuhnauer temporarily blocking the order. They note that changing this principle would require a constitutional amendment or a Supreme Court ruling. The president argues that this policy incentivizes unauthorized immigration by granting automatic citizenship to children of non-citizens, which he sees as a loophole in an immigration law. He contends that the current interpretation of the 14th Amendment has been misapplied, leading to automatic citizenship for children born in the U.S. to non-citizen parents, including those without legal status. The impact of birthright citizenship is profound. It has shaped U.S. demographics, providing citizenship to millions born on American soil. Hospitals typically don't request parents' proof of legal status, and some births occur outside hospitals due to cultural or personal choices, making exact figures elusive. Critics warn that ending birthright citizenship could render some children stateless, stripping them of basic rights like education and health care. At its core, this debate goes beyond immigration. It's a dispute over who gets to be an American and the principles that guide that decision.
Now, before another quick look at the headlines. Leaders from the EAC and SADC have met in Dar es Salaam to discuss the conflict in the eastern DRC. And as we just saw, a federal judge has blocked President Donald Trump's executive order to end birthright citizenship for children born to parents who are in the U.S. illegally or temporarily. As always, it was a pleasure, and I thank you so much for taking the time to watch Rwanda Television. Stay with the station. I'll see you again soon. Goodbye.